Thank you very much, Dennis. It is a pleasure to be here. It's the third and final public input meeting for the Blue Springs Aquatics study. I want to make sure that I've got everything working and in line here. So again, my name is Brian Garvey. I'm with SFS. Also with me tonight virtually from their respective locations are Doug Whitaker with Water Technology, Inc. They're providing the aquatics expertise on this project. And then Darren Barr with Ballard, King and Associates, who has provided market analysis and participation data, and eventually we'll get into an operations pro forma and financial plan for the concept that we're going to see tonight. So a little bit about our agenda tonight. We are going to recap community meeting number 1 and 2, as well as some of the survey data from a couple of the other community engagement aspects of the project. Darren will go through the market assessment, kind of the competitive landscape and anticipated participation, and how that feeds into the demand-based design solution that you'll see in front of you tonight. Ultimately, that'll impact their pro forma that they'll develop as well. Doug and I will go through the aquatics concept and kind of the architectural and aquatics features that are included, and then we'll finish up with next steps for the process to conclude the study. Okay. All right. So community meeting number 1, we started this process. I'm going to summarize these next several slides because they've been the subject of the past public meeting. So I want to kind of go through it quickly so we can get to the heart of this presentation. But we started this process back in February of this year, prior to the pandemic. And so we held one community meeting here at the field house on February 27th. We had about 140 or so attendees that came through the course of the day. We actually had the materials set up over the day. We did a dot polling exercise. We offered comment cards that could prioritize aquatics features, allow people to write in comments, and then give a visual preference on the types of features they wanted to see. The results of that were really the top 5 features you see here with stars next to it. So important things were indoor multi-generational lifestyle pools, indoor therapy or wellness pools, spas and little pools, a outdoor lazy river, and zero depth beach entry. That's from the visual preferencing. This information we use in combination with online and statistically valid surveys to validate what we hear from public meetings and validate what we get from online and statistically valid surveys. So one survey was the online Survey Monkey. This was out and available to the public from February through April. Number 12, aquatics and parks related questions. We had just shy of 200 respondents, but we did have good coverage through the geographic area of Blue Springs. The statistically valid survey was executed by ETC Institute, which is a firm that specializes in this type of thing. This goes out to very specific demographics to make sure they get a good cross-section of the community and get feedback from all different demographics in the Blue Springs community. They guaranteed 400 respondents to hit a level of confidence of 95%. They actually received 502. So that was a good response rate. Like I said, I'm going to breeze through these slides just to show the demographics and the distribution across the community met all of the goals of that statistically valid survey. What that survey ultimately showed and what the community meetings and the online survey all kind of validate or corroborate is that there's a high level of support, not just for parks and recreation in general in Blue Springs, but specifically for aquatics features. And that speaks directly to the fact that Blue Springs does not have a municipal aquatics center currently. So a couple other key takeaways here were the top 5 features from that statistically valid survey. Again, kind of go right along with the top polling preferencing exercise from the community meeting on the 27th of February. a couple of outliers there, a little bit different, but generally along the same lines as providing spaces for families and supporting multi-purpose types of aquatics amenities. Another question that was asked was basically the what's the recommended location or the preferred or ideal location for a new aquatic facility, and it was a 63% of respondents in this survey said adjacent to the Blue Springs Fieldhouse. We think that's important because it feeds directly into the city's goals of developing an aquatics amenity for the community that's not just exciting and fits the community's needs, but is also financially sustainable and successful. So with that, I'm going to kick it over to Darren Barr from Ballard King, and I'll have you just tell me when you want me to advance slides for you.
Sounds great. Can you hear me okay, Brian?
Sure can.
Okay, so the role that Ballard King goes ahead and plays in this process is completing the market assessment process, which means going ahead and looking at the demographics of the area, alternative service providers, assisting with the input as it relates to what should be included in the facility, and then subsequently the operational plan. So really going ahead and providing the city with a broad picture of what to expect short-term and long-term as it relates to adding aquatics to the Fieldhouse location. So the map that you see here is a combination of the City of Blue Springs boundaries and the school district boundaries. In many cases, we go ahead and use a combination of those if they're not congruous to go ahead and identify a primary service area for a project like this. And again, how we define a primary service area is the distance that people are willing to travel, at least on a minimum of a weekly basis, to use facilities and programs and services that are provided. That's not to say that you won't have people outside of that area travel to your facility, but again, what are we going to go ahead, and this identifies what we base our primary membership revenues and admission revenues from. Next slide, Brian. So when we go ahead and we look at that primary service area, you have approximately 99,000, almost 100,000 in population. Typically, when you're going ahead and you're looking at primary service area, you want to have a minimum of 50,000 people to make a multi-purpose recreational facility like this, which includes aquatics, successful. And you're growing. It's something everybody's saying, duh, on the other end of the phone. But, we want to be able to point that out, that from the 2000 to 2010 census, you had almost a 22% increase, and that we're anticipating maybe not the same level of increase, but you're continuing to grow. The median age is points to a younger population with families and children. Aquatics is unique. Swimming is unique. It's something that people can go ahead and participate in from what we like to say from birth to grave, right? You can go ahead and participate in it at any age, but typically community recreation centers, full service community recreation centers are those that, successful ones are those that go ahead and have a community that has a higher level of families and children because they go ahead and they're significant users of services. And lastly, we went ahead and identified that approximately 38.8%, almost 39% of the population of the households in the primary service area have children present. So it backs up that lower median age. Go ahead. So when we go ahead and we begin to discuss the idea of how many people swim or how many people come to the pool, we try and use some good statistical data for that. And the data that we use is produced by the National Sporting Goods Association and the survey that they do on an annual basis of how Americans spend their leisure time. So based on the median age of the community, based on the age distribution, based on your geographic location, you average those three together, plus the national average for participation in swimming, and it equates to approximately 16.4% of people participate in swimming or go to the pool. When we apply that to your population, it comes out to approximately 14,830 people over the age of 7 participate in swimming. When we go ahead and we take that information one step further and look at the number of times frequent users, occasional users, and infrequent users go ahead and use an aquatics facility, it comes up to 666,000 roughly swimming visits on an annual basis. Now, those are not necessarily specific to a facility within the primary service area. Those visits, those pool visits, swimming visits can be spread out over the country, over the globe, to be honest with you. It merely identifies a market for pool visits within your primary service area, and that is a significant number. The other thing that's really important that we went ahead and that we've done through this study is identify the other pool providers in the area. And when you look at municipal providers, private health club providers, nonprofit providers, there's approximately 21 other pools in the area. So when you go ahead and when you start to talk about the components that Doug is going to talk about later and Brian's going to talk about later, we want to make sure that we have some things included in this facility that make it unique from some of the other facilities that are in the area, so that as people have a choice of which facility to go to, the Blue Springs, the aquatics facility that's attached to the field house, is something that attracts the full spectrum of swimmers, not just lap swimmers, not just recreational swimmers, not just group exercise swimmers, but a little bit of something for everybody in that facility. Go ahead. The other thing that I think it's important to go ahead and take into account, especially when we're talking about, this facility being adjacent to the field house or even connected to the field house, is that people who participate in swimming also participate in these activities that are on the right-hand column. So adding a pool to the field house could go ahead and could see an increase in the overall membership to the facility, because you may have people that say, boy, my primary thing is going ahead and swimming, but they don't have a pool yet. And if they did have a pool, I'd be very interested to go, because I could do all these other things that are associated with the current field house and the programs and services that they offer. Okay. And again, going ahead and putting the alternative service providers on the map, this goes ahead and just identifies the star illustrates the star illustrates the potential location for the aquatic center next to the field house, and then the green dots and the little swimmers that you see across the area. Go ahead and identify other aquatics facilities that are in the area or are close by. So just to make sure we're not doing that in a vacuum. The green dots are what we go ahead and what we call a traditional pool. By traditional, you could go ahead and refer to that as rectangular or traditional lap pool, either of the 25-yard, 25-meter, or 50-meter variety. The next slide. Tried to do better that time instead of just a next. The swimmers go ahead and start talking about aquatic centers with play features. There can be concerns from folks as it relates to play features. Do they have to be on all the time? No. In some cases, do facilities that have some of those play features require additional staff? At times. The benefit of these types of facilities is that it goes ahead and reaches the full spectrum of swimming participants. So while it may come along with a little bit higher cost to operate, the caveat to that is that it comes across with a significantly greater revenue potential as opposed to your traditional rectangular pool. Next slide. So that kind of concludes where we're at with the market analysis, and like Brian referred to earlier, our next steps in this process, once we've narrowed down the concepts, is going ahead and putting together an operational plan.
Excellent. Thank you for the summary and all the information, Darren. Good stuff. So I wanted to take a second here just to reflect and summarize the community meeting that we had back on August 26th. At that meeting, we had a similar format as today. We had an in-person kind of open house format set up here at the field house from about 4:30 until 6 o'clock. We've kind of caught users of the field house going in and out of the fitness center, able to have some discussion and dialogue with those folks to share the study process. And then we had a virtual presentation like we're doing here tonight that will be recorded and shared on the Blue Springs Parks and Recreation social media outlets. The content of that community meeting was everything that you just saw up to this point in this presentation, and then the first real presentation of any aquatics and building expansion concepts to house those aquatics amenities. I'm going to stick with just the two concepts that were shown here for the recap of that first community meeting. And basically that was a couple of different kind of indoor concepts, including a spray pad versus some shallow water and some slot alternatives. Some of the feedback that we heard on these concepts were, a double flow rider, is that really necessary? The slide complex, we're concerned with meeting our budgetary constraints on this project as well. So what we're going to show you tonight is essentially the same concept that you see here, with some features maybe considering more of the reality of the budget and allowing the city and everyone some flexibility in how those things are realized in the future. So I'm going to go right into our refined design concept. Architecturally, it's the same as what was presented at the last community meeting. So rather than summarize that and then have to go back through, I want to just go through that now as part of tonight's content. To orient everyone, this is an aerial view kind of looking northeast over the fieldhouse property and the adjacent green space to the west of the fieldhouse. Currently, there are about 207 existing parking spaces at the fieldhouse, and really the high demand for those spaces seems to come in the winter time. During the summer, it seems to be a little bit slower, but as people want to start working out and getting prepared for the holidays or recovering from the holidays, you tend to see the more peak demand on parking at the fieldhouse. There's kind of a high point right as you enter the west side of the fieldhouse at that roundabout, which is really an underutilized kind of drop-off area and takes a lot of the parking potential and pushes it away. So some of those issues that we have here and opportunities that we've identified with the existing fieldhouse on the right side of this graphic, expanding the building to incorporate a new lobby space and support facilities for the indoor aquatics just to the west of the existing fieldhouse. And we'll see in more detail how those pieces come together. We're able to incorporate about 265 total spaces in this current layout. So that is an increase of almost 50 spaces, or a little more than 50 spaces here total. We haven't really packed the site full of parking, so there's still the opportunity to maybe pick up 5 or 10 more spaces, but we think that this is an adequate amount. Again, considering that the peak demand for parking at the facility is during the winter, and the outdoor aquatics would not be taxing that parking lot nearly as much. So, a couple of opportunities, I-70 to the north. This is a great opportunity for visibility, as well as a great opportunity to kind of have an iconic view of this building and identifying Blue Springs along the I-70 corridor. We have this adjacent property to the west that could allow for additional parking expansion if that was ever entered into a partnership or acquisition. A service drive on the west for pool and building mechanical service, so we can really tuck all of those back of house spaces up kind of along the north side of the site. And topography is definitely a challenge, but it's also a really great opportunity to create a dynamic visitor experience and views into and out of the aquatics. So here's what that looks like in a three-dimensional rendering. Again, you can see the Blue Springs Fieldhouse is kind of this dark gray box on the upper right-hand side of the screen. We enter into the facility in a new lobby space right here at the corner, which is off of a new drop-off plaza. We'll see more detail of what happens in and around this space in a few moments. The outdoor aquatics support facilities are located right here. And then in the spirit of developing a concept and a potential project that is not just a seasonal use facility, as much as possible, we're looking for opportunities to do things that are both unique but extend the usability of different parts of this project throughout the year. So what you see at number 7 is kind of a covered outdoor area that during the summer swim season is part of the outdoor pool complex. But during the shoulder seasons, let's say from March through May, or from late August through November, we have an ability for a new outdoor space that's covered, and we'll see some details of that in a moment. Number 8 is kind of our concessions and guards and staff space for the outdoor aquatics. So again, more of a seasonal use, but if we can connect it to something that we can use in the fall and spring, then we can extend the use of that space and the revenue generating potential of that space as well. You can start to see the outdoor aquatics and some of the components there that you'll see in more detail shortly, as well as the indoor aquatics is this large massing here at number 9. And then you can just start to make out a roof that would overhang a portion of the indoor/outdoor aquatics, and we'll see that in more detail shortly as well. So I want to walk through just how you would enter this facility and be admitted and access all the different features. We'll show renderings of these different spaces here in just a little while after we go through the aquatics more specifically. So a user coming to the facility in the future would come up the Century Drive, park and drop someone off at this plaza space here, or park in the parking lot and enter a new lobby space in the vestibule at this location. This new lobby is kind of stair-stepped down a little bit from the current lobby elevation, and that's all taking advantage of that topography that we talked about a few moments ago. There's a secure corridor, so during the summer season, these changing facilities, we have 5 family changing rooms along that corridor, and then men's and women's changing facilities as well. We could have a seasonal control desk or admissions point for the outdoor aquatics that has a clear line of sight to the existing control desk in the field house today. So if you're coming to the facility for outdoor aquatics or indoor aquatics for that matter, you could pay admission at this point, use the changing facilities, and come out onto this elevated deck that looks down over all of the outdoor aquatics. Stepping down just a little bit more, you can see that we have another area here, suggestion of maybe a fire pit or a sunken area here that could be used during that spring and fall time period, as well as during the summer period, though you probably wouldn't have a fire burning during that time. The concessions and guard space over here. Again, all of this area kind of overlooks the lower level, which is the indoor and outdoor aquatics level. That's everything to the west of this new lobby. If you're coming to the field house, you ascend some stairs or a ramp to get up to the level of the field house. A small corridor here that connects the building to a few new community meeting rooms and a small warming kitchen over here. And then a few new restrooms up in this corner of the lobby as well. The existing elevator would be maintained as the accessible means of movement from the upper level down to the lower level. And the existing control desk would also be maintained, which is connected to the staff areas in the field house today. To get into the indoor aquatics, you would descend that stair that's right next to the control desk today, arriving at a level on the lower level, roughly in the same location as the current men's restrooms on the lower level today. The women's restrooms, because we're going to accommodate all new changing facilities adjacent to the indoor pool, all of these spaces can be opened up and they can be reprogrammed or reused for other activities relative to the field house in the future. Those are unallocated at this point. There's a long corridor that connects to the changing facilities for men and women down here. There's a corridor that extends into the indoor pool area that's for family changing rooms and family lockers. So again, when you get to the bottom of the stairs, you have a clear line of sight to the indoor pool. You have a connection from a party room that could be used for birthday parties, again, adjacent to the pool and more visually connected to the pool. could also be used for lifeguard training or other types of aquatic-related meetings or training activities. There's a sauna shown between the family changing rooms and the guard room and manager's office in this area. And then just a small custodial space there you see as well. Soon I'll be turning it over to Doug to go through the rest of the aquatics concept, but I'll highlight a couple of other key points here with the architectural layout and configuration. Again, the dark blue space is about 15,000 square feet of indoor aquatics or natatorium area. That is comparable and larger than most of the other indoor aquatics facilities in the Kansas City metropolitan area. A lot of facilities are right around that or a little bit lower on the large side of these types. So Olathe, Matt Ross, Lenexa, some of those newer facilities in the Kansas City metro area. Pool mechanical is shown here on the north side, and this pool mechanical would house all of the indoor and aquatics mechanical systems. So we get those in a centralized location, but there would be separate mechanical systems for the different bodies of water and indoor and outdoor. And then again, the concessions, guard, and first aid staff areas there on the south west portion. So here's a three-dimensional view of everything we were just discussing there. It gives you a bit more perspective on how you enter the facility here at this main entry, community rooms with a raised patio area, that lobby space, and the decision point of outdoor admissions and support spaces versus the remainder of the field house activities. It's critical in these types of facilities to, when you enter the building, really understand all the activities that are available, visually connect you to those activities, and then also think about how staff has to control ingress and egress in this facility as well, and their visual connectivity. So with that, I'm going to ask Doug to step onto the line and review the aquatics concept in more detail.
Hello, everybody. This is Doug Whitaker with Water Technology. And it's really about having a very unique and engaging experience. And one of the things that we wanted to make sure that this place is very dynamic, so that it has durable attraction value, and then it has something for all ages at all stages. And so one of the things we looked at is some of the kind of the fun things that people want to experience on a very multi-purpose recreation and aquatic center. So the next slide kind of shows some of the types of features that we might be looking at. People come to the pool to relax, whether it's on a sun shelf like on the left, or floating around the lazy river, or just spending time with your friends and talking to each other. One of the things I know that's been very important that we've heard many times is we want to have a nice indoor year-round aquatic center. But wouldn't it be nice, just because it turns to be Labor Day, oftentimes we see that the weather temperatures are nice and people have time on their hands on the weekends or maybe even after schools. How could we extend the season without burdening ourselves with the expense of having a huge, large indoor facility? So we're looking at some options to how we extend the season, both indoors with outdoor extensions. And we'll show you a little bit of that later. The next slide kind of illustrates some of the things that Brian had talked about. We wanted to provide unique experiences, whether it's a flow rider where you can learn how to surf or even practice your surfing skills, or having water slides that have a variety of different types of ways to go down the slide, whether it's on a family raft ride, or it's a plunge slide, or a timed system going down. But all of these types of slides have different levels and different excitement zones to attract all different age groups for users. So the next slide kind of shows a very nice expression of, when people come, sometimes they want high thrills, and how do we engage users in fun activities that they enjoy, that brings them back, but also that they can become better at exercising and lifestyle modifications that help extend their lives. So one of the things that we've seen is that's really fun in these facilities is the challenges, kind of that element of friendly competition. Whether you're making a leap from the side of the pool, climbing up a rock, or challenging each other on a ninja course that lowers into the water during non-peak periods and then raises back up. You're exercising whether you're realizing it or not. By jumping in, having a natural experience, or climbing up a wall. All those types of things not only help introduce a fun, friendly element of a challenge to each one of these facilities, but it also gets people exercising, and it's a memorable experience every time you come to the facility. And so one of the things we started to look at is how do we integrate all of these things into both an indoor and an outdoor facility that has an extended season. Now, one thing that Brian talked about is that the indoor component is a really important aspect for the year-round operation. And we also wanted to make sure that it was operated economically and safely and very transparent. So one of the things that we look at is that when you walk into where the family restrooms are, that's where a lot of users will come in with younger children. We want to make it safe, so as you walk in there, you see all the fun excitement. Right in front of you, we're showing a splash pad that's all deck level features and a few raised features that has no standing water. So you can actually transition through that area, or it can be on, and it's a fun, exciting area. The thing that's really important about this is it's also, if we have periods where the pool area isn't very busy, but maybe some younger users want to use that, that's kind of one of those things that takes very little lifeguards to be able to monitor it. But as you're standing there at the family restroom and changing areas as you come through, you look into this natatorium, and your first thing you see is a very nice lifestyle pool. It has warm water. It has a lazy river that's about 124 feet. You have some bench seating in it. You have some a vortex where people can go around faster. And it has that opening that we can possibly go to the exterior also. But anyway, that's a nice warm water pool that's going to be operated somewhere between 88 degrees to 90 degrees. That's about 2,900 square feet. It's great for open swim, learn to swim, all sorts of programs, water fitness programs, and all those types of things. On the right next to that is a whirlpool, raised whirlpool spa. That's about an 8 to 10 passenger whirlpool that has places where people can sit there, they can socialize, they can enjoy their friends, and probably there's going to be some water features that come off of that. But also it's one of those things where people can sit there and see their family members, whether they're enjoying the lifestyle pool and the warm water, or they can look behind them and to the north and see our 4-lane lap pool. That was one of the big things that was input that we'd like to see a few more lap lanes to help the lap swimmers, and also other types of programs that can take place in this pool, such as very more active water exercise programs. You can have both that in the shallow end or the deep end where it's non-concussive. You can do it on floaties or just treading water. But so it's a 75-foot long lap pool, 25 yards, has a nice entry set of steps into it. And one of the things that we look at this is it's very multi-purpose. That water temperature wants to be somewhere between 81 to 84 degrees. So it's not too hot for the people that are swimming a mile or two for lap swimming, but also it's not too cold enough for people that are not doing as strenuous of exercises. This pool also can double in for a fun place to enjoy your friends. We talked about the jumping and climbing. We actually have a climbing wall and a jumping platform that is being shown right now, where you can climb up the stairs And at one level, you're jumping off and diving off a 1 meter high platform. You can climb up the stairs a little bit further, and you're at 3 meters high, like a high dive. It's really fun and exciting. So it's kind of like cliff diving in the local quarries or other places. To the north of that is a nice climbing wall where we can actually have climbing up there, so you can climb up the wall and fall back safely into the water. All under the safe operations of the lifeguards. That is minimal staffing because of its transparency. One of the options that Brian's going to talk about in a few moments is we can also look at a little bit of a challenge course that would be raised above that, so we can have the opportunity to have underwater features that can be installed and then taken out of the water in a very short period of time to appeal to a lot of the users that are using the gym, where that friendly element of competition and challenge comes into it. But we'll talk about that in a little bit. So the other thing that we wanted to make sure on a year-round basis in this great natatorium, that we have a water slide. This is an 18-foot tall tower. We have some nice features inside of the flumes as you go down, and it exits into a run-out flume. So what the neat thing about that is, it's a very safe operation. There's no standing water except for when the water slides on, and it's very easy to manage. But again, going back to that entrance from our family change rooms, when you look at all this fun stuff that's indoors, we're going to have this great panel of walls that you can actually see through and see all the fun activities that are going to be exterior, that we can have an extended season. So we have several pathways to get there, from the men's and women's locker room that are more safely located by the deeper water of the pool. And then we also have, through the family locker rooms, past the spray pad and through an opening in the wall to get to the exterior pools. The first thing that we notice as we come to the exterior is that extension of the indoor lazy river. This lazy river has the indoor portion of it's 124 feet. The outdoor adds another 150 feet to the course length. Now, these lazy rivers are a lot of fun for, appealing to users with inner tubes and personal flotation devices to float around and have fun and socialize. But we're starting to see even older kids love this because we can walk around that facility or walk around the lazy river. We're getting great exercise, whether we do it with the current or against the current, and have that opportunity for being able to socialize while we're working out and talk and walk and talk, so to speak. We also, in the exterior portion of it, have places where we can sit and socialize. We can also have classes, learn to swim classes in there as well. It's an additional place for those activities. During the inclement weather, when it gets really cold outside, what we will do is put a cover on that. We'll shut the doors, a very easy thing to accomplish, so that we're not wasting energy, but we can just hardly wait for the weather to clear and open up the doors and take the cover off and be able to go back outdoors again and enjoy the river. So we will have an extended season for that at a very cost-effective manner. The next thing that we approach is to the, Brian talked about this a little bit earlier. We're going to have a nice zero depth entry outdoor pool. And one of the things that we heard that people really like the idea of maybe having a wave pool. So how can we have a combination of waves, zero depth entry, and the other thing that was really fun that we saw in our earlier slide where we talked about relaxing, we have a sun shelf in there where there's lots of chase lounges where they're in 6 inches of water. You're sitting in the water, socializing with your friends and family, and seeing all the activities. And it's also got the correct solar orientation that many of you that go to resorts in the wintertime, and you'll see that these are really popular in a lot of the resorts, and they're starting to make their way into the public recreation market. But again, we have out in the middle of the round circle, there's a wave ball that oscillates up and down about every 15 minutes. That comes on for 5 minutes, and it creates a wave in the pool. That's really fun and exciting, so that People are bobbing around, having a great time. Every time that wave comes on, it's something a little bit different. One of the unique things is that also transfers that wave activity through that little channel. That there's a channel that connects the zero depth entry to that wave chamber. And so a little of that wave energy will transfer over into the zero depth entry, and we'll get some very gentle waves that youngsters can enjoy even though they're not in the wave pool. The other thing that we want to talk about really quickly is that we have a water slide complex. This water slide complex is like no other in the area, which is unique and very exciting. As you come up the first set of stairs, we have a 12-foot high platform that has a family ramp slide. So we can actually have 2 or 3 people going down this slide together, kind of competing against each other, enjoying this, and they go into a run out. So there's no standing water, it just is deceleration water. The next thing you do is you go back up to the tower and go to a 36-foot tall height. At that point up in the tower, you'll be able to see I-70 and maybe wave at some of your friends as they're going by. But up there we have 2 exhilarating slides. One is kind of an enclosed speed flume. So you go down that slide and you're turning and twisting and coming down the end of it in a very rapid fashion. And what happens when you come into that run out, you can look over to the side and see what your time was. How many seconds did it take you to get down that? One of the things that we're seeing is that this becomes very popular, especially, families are going down that and they're seeing that, okay, well, Dad's time was 13 seconds. Maybe I could get faster. So, Dad's time gets to be 13 and Johnny's time is 3 minutes, 13.4 seconds. So there's a lot of competition and it raises a lot of friendly, fun stuff. The other slide is a plunge slide. So you get at the top of it and you're sliding down it, and it's just a straight shot down. You accelerate very rapidly and then decelerate in that plunge flow. It's really fun. So as you can imagine, sitting out on the pool deck, looking at all your friends coming down the slides, whether they're doing the timing slide or they're going down the plunge slide, it's a lot of fun interactivity. And again, it also engages the people on the upper deck that are sitting there, by the concession stands where there's shade structures up there, and they're just kind of coming into the facility and they want to see what's going on. We can see over the wave pool. We can see all the fun happening onto the water slides. But the other thing that acts as a backdrop is we have that surf simulator that sits there, and it's really fun and exciting. That's one of the things that will also have that extended season where you can imagine, even if it's past Labor Day and it's a little cool outside, surfers are very used to surfing in wetsuits and stuff like that. So they can have a wetsuit on and maybe have an extended season through the non-inclement weather. And so that's, again, picture yourself up on that concessions deck, that raised deck, having concessions, sitting with your friends, but you can also see across all these pools and watch your friends surfing. One of the ways we're also going to kind of enlighten that experience is we're putting a video board behind the surfing machine. So we'll have cameras that can visualize people surfing. We can have other cameras that will show pictures of people going down the water slides and kind of the faces that they make when they're going really fast. And possibly even some cameras around the lazy river to kind of capture some of the fun and excitement there. So this is a very engaging, very unique facility. You won't find an accumulation of all of these kind of features anywhere in the Kansas metro area or possibly even the United States, because it's a very appealing type of an approach. So
This is Darren. I just wanted to throw in that, one of the things that you've described here, and for those listening, is just the idea that beyond participation in these various activities and using these various components, one of the things that you're going to see is just the number of spectators, for people watching folks come down the slide or watching people ride the flow rider, or even going ahead and incorporating a countdown clock to that wave area and just watching the mass of humanity, for lack of a better phrase, rush over to that area as the waves get ready to start. But it truly is engaging as a participant and engaging as a spectator.
And Darren, what does that translate into revenue generation?
More.
Absolutely, which is a good point. What I know that the team has been really working hard on is how to try to bring as much participation in here, but also as much revenue as possible.
Yeah, and I think it's not just about making money, it's sustaining a facility that meets the community's needs. And how do you do that? You do that with these unique features that reach a wide variety of user groups across the entire week, not just on Saturday and Sunday, right? So,
absolutely, this will be a destination for all the different ages, for all the different reasons that the same group or even a different group come to the field house currently.
So I think something that's interesting to point out here is that the only two truly seasonal aquatics amenities shown is the wave ball or the wave pool and the slide complex. Those are the two pieces that you would likely winterize with the normal, quote unquote, normal summer swim season. Those are your 3-month amenities. The rest of them have the ability to be open much deeper into the season. And in some seasons, maybe all year. Just depends on the weather that we have. So I think it's a really fascinating idea, and it blurs the line successfully between indoor aquatics and outdoor aquatics.
And able to operate in a cost-effective manner.
True. Deck space is something that we haven't really discussed here in this concept, and so I wanted to just touch on that briefly. Doug, maybe you can just speak to the kind of the ratio of aquatics, pool surface area and aquatics features to deck space available.
Thank you, Brian. That's a very good point. And one of the things when we look at the indoor pools, we're always striving, because the discipline it requires is you always want to make the pools bigger and bigger and bigger, and then all of a sudden you run out of deck space. And so what we've done here is really taken the effort to make sure that we have great clearances around all the different features, have enough deck space for a lot of different participants. And one of the things that we always try to do is on the indoor components, have at least 1 square foot of deck space per 1 square foot of water space. And we've actually exceeded that. We actually have more deck space than a one-to-one relationship, which is a very hard thing to do with all these types of features. So it's a nice opportunity to provide that kind of clearances and deck space for people to sit. Because if you take a snapshot in time at any aquatic facility, you'll notice that oftentimes 50% of the users are on the deck at any one time compared to the people in the water. So you want to make sure that you have that ability for people on the deck and in the water and through the transitions. On the outdoor components, usually what we try to see is a 2-to-1 relationship from deck space to water space. And we've achieved that. I think it's like 2.3 to 1 with the amount of deck space that we have for indoors and outdoors. We have greater deck space, and that allows for more chase lounges and things of that nature. So it really does become a great place and destination. And sure, it will be very busy on the 4th of July, Memorial Day, and the big holidays during the summer, but there's enough deck space for everybody, so it's not too confined or cramped.
Thanks, Doug. And just to kind of wrap this portion of the discussion, again, this is a significantly sized natatorium. So for some of those that are viewing this online and seeing these graphics maybe for the first time and thinking, well, wow, there's not nearly as much pool in there as I'd like to see. This is a significant facility that's being presented here tonight. So it feels appropriate, the amount of deck space that we have. Like Doug mentioned, it's always the inclination to maximize water and minimize the non-water space. But if you want a comfortable, functional facility, these are important considerations. And
Brad, just one of the things I think is really important to point out, one of the things that we heard from community input was that we would like to see more lap lanes. And so some of the earlier concepts had less lap lanes, and we used that feedback to help guide us to get more lap lanes.
Yep. Indeed. So real quickly here, just to paint a picture of some of these features, I'm going to go through this relatively quickly, but it's just some images that start to highlight these spaces. So like Doug mentioned, as you're entering the facility from the east side, from the field house on the lower level, that's the opportunity for that birthday party room. That is such a hot item and a great way for the facility operator in the city to generate some revenue, but also provide a space for kids' birthday parties adjacent to the pool. It's a great image that shows that. The sauna, as we mentioned in passing there, hasn't really got much airtime in our discussions, but that is something included here. And it's important that we include those kind of adjacent to staff areas and make them kind of visible from the public side. High priority on the survey, again, was a spray ground for the kids. It actually was more specific to an outdoor spray ground, which Blue Springs has provided. This is an image of the new spray ground here in town. And so providing one on the outdoor side didn't seem to make as much sense as let's do it inside where we can enjoy that while you're around. Water slide complex, as Doug mentioned, showing examples here with the runouts. So you just arrive in decelerating water as opposed to a body of water. On this one. Oh, it doesn't stay on, so we'll go on. Another image that wasn't wanting to stay on, I actually speak to it from this image. This is the Olathe Community Center. And again, this is the same size surface area of water as what's being proposed in this concept. At Olathe, you see 4 25-yard lap lines separating the cool water lap area from more warm water program space, which you see over kind of on the upper right side of the view there. This was to highlight the lap pool, more specifically, and the opportunity to have like kind of a rock climbing wall and cliff diving area. As Doug was mentioning, we have this opportunity to extend the indoor lazy river to the outdoor. And so this is an image that just kind of shows how one facility has done that in another location. And you can start to see that portal, or that way that they separate the indoor pool from the outdoors. On the outdoor wave pool, there's also the zero depth entry and the play area. So we have the opportunity to integrate some children's play features and give them a great location for fun on the outdoor pool. The wet deck, as Doug mentioned, again, kind of pulling some things that they've started to see, or they've seen on the hospitality side of the industry into the municipal side here. And there's a shot of what that wave ball looks like as it's being activated and starts its oscillations. Our flow rider, an example of that, another great example, or another great way for the facility to extend that season and generate revenue, potentially with some surfing programs and classes there. And
we just won't have palm trees in Blue Springs.
We can do Palm Springs and Blue Springs. I don't know.
Yeah.
Palm trees.
The other thing that's interesting about that flow rider is, the number of birthday parties you can do surrounding surfing, and there's also some opportunities for unique membership that those folks that are really good at that don't want to wait in line. So opening the facility early and then being more than willing to pay a premium for that use.
Right.
And it also appeals to that hard to appeal age group of teenagers and things of that nature, where they want to come to this facility just for that destination only. But then what happens when they see all the fun activities, they also branch out.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So also just an image, and this is a project we completed over in O'Fallon, Missouri, on the other end of I-70 in Missouri. Kind of showing, the concessions and the relationship to the deck, Fallon has this elevated kind of concessions area, not nearly to this extent or separation in height there, but you can start to see how this area across here could be opened up in the wintertime or in the non-outdoor pool season time. And you could have a sunken kind of fire pit area where people could gather around. And even in the summertime can use this area as a gathering space for the concessions. And because of that elevation, we leverage that and secure those stairs or those ramps down to the outdoor pool so that in the off season, people aren't allowed down there using that. So it kind of creates a flexible kind of park atmosphere, if you will, adjacent to the outdoor pool area. And just a quick image of a fire pit and kind of what the character of that could be like. So we're almost at the conclusion of our presentation, and we have some kind of draft renderings to just further illustrate what this facility can look and feel like. So we'll go through those here real quick, and we'll circle back and answer any questions that have come up during the course of the presentation. So this image is looking to the north toward the new entry. It's kind of this tall, glassy volume here. The community rooms that we mentioned earlier are over here on the right-hand side of the screen. And those rooms are, again, kind of up a couple of feet, so you get a little bit of natural separation between the community rooms and a patio space that could exist kind of behind the screen, so you get different levels of interactivity between those spaces. The outdoor aquatics you see kind of trailing off the image to the left-hand side, and in the distance on the left side you see the top of the natatorium and the field house, the existing field house up to the right. As you walk into the facility, this is a shot of the lobby looking directly north. So we have a large window, so you immediately see the indoor aquatics component through that window. On the left side is that secured pathway into the outdoor aquatics support facilities and that seasonal admissions window. And to the right, you can start to see the stairs that go up that align with the kind of the upper level or the mezzanine main entry level of the field house. As Doug was mentioning earlier, right when you walk into the indoor pool area or the natatorium from the family changing rooms or the party rooms, this would be what you're greeted with there. So about a 1,500 or 1,600 square foot spray pad area. You can start to see the indoor slide there off to the left, and then the warm water lifestyle pool in the middle of the space, and right off in the distance there, it's kind of hard to tell, but the 4-lane by 25-yard lap pool with some diving area there at the west end of it. And of course, all of the outdoor amenities visible through a large expansive glass wall that could have some pivoting panels that allow that to really flow from indoor to outdoor during the summer months. A view looking right over that warm water lifestyle pool directly to the west. You can see out in that view the ramps that ascend up to the raised area outside the concessions space there. Now moving all the way to the west end of the outdoor aquatics and looking back to the east. Here you can see that family slide. This dad must have jumped down the slide before all the rest of the family, I guess. You can see the surf simulator there behind him. And that video screen that we've talked about is having not just video of the surfing simulator or other features in the facility, but can also be used for a movie night at the pool, so you can play movies there and have people up on the concessions level watching it, or sporting events, people in the pool being able to see it. A lot of different activities possible with that video screen. Just a closer view as you move up along the seating, the sun deck on the right. That large overhang structure that I mentioned briefly earlier in the presentation, which would cover that outdoor lazy river area, and again trying to extend that season, provide a lot of shade in various parts of the pool, and again blur that between indoor and outdoor aquatics. And the final view, looking southeast at a lot of the same things, you can see the zero depth entry there at the beach entry into the wave pool, that kind of meandering pathway back into the wave ball area. And this is an important note here is because of the wave ball or the wave activity, the height or the sides of the pool are increased in height. So that's to contain that wave action. You can also see the covered outdoor concessions and seating area at the upper level and the ramp system that connects that. So you have a fully accessible route that's a nice transition from the changing facilities and the lockers and the concessions area back down to the level of the outdoor aquatics. And just that final image there to summarize everything and leave that visual with all that have tuned in with us tonight. Our next steps moving forward over about the next 5 weeks are refining this concept based on the continued feedback we get from tonight's information. Further developing the cost of the project, including all of the various project costs from construction of the facility to equipping the facility and designing the facility. That'll lend some credence to any phasing plans that need to be considered and working within the budget the city is anticipating. Darren and his team will be working on that financial pro forma, making sure that we have everything developed in a financially sustainable way to operate. We'll finalize all of those deliverables and make a presentation to City Council that's anticipated in early November. I believe November 2nd is the date that we are targeting currently. So with that, I will open it up to any questions here. Dennis is bringing over the question list. Okay, so one question is about the number of lap lanes. What is the most appropriate for this type of facility? In the last concept, we had shown 3 lap lanes, which is consistent with a number of other similar facilities in the area, and the challenges that are faced with, the time of day and the amount of time that kind of flat water is used. We did hear that feedback, and we increased it to 4 lap lanes in the current concept. Doug or Darren, I don't know if you have any more you would add to that.
I think, Brian, this is Doug. One of the things that we heard that there are quite a few lap lanes in Blue Springs. They might not all be as accessible as this will be, but again, what we try to do is make sure there's plenty of lap lanes and not just make it another lap pool that doesn't have the unique appeal, but do provide all of those lap lanes for people that do want to do lap swimming and all the other water exercises that can take place in that flat water.
Agreed. And I think operationally and programmatically, how those are operated are important as well to make sure it's dedicated to lap users at specific times of day. And other things.
The other side of that goes along and sort of this is Darren with Ballard King, that sort of piggybacks with what Doug is saying, is that you can build an infinite number of lap lanes, but there's not an infinite number of lap swimmers, right? So we want to go ahead and we want to identify a number of lap lanes that goes ahead and meets that need, which bumping it up from 3 to 4, I think, does that. But then also understanding that, how do we go ahead and how do we share lanes amongst lap swimmers and how do we do those things to maximize that use becomes very, very important, because while lap swimmers and competitive swimmers are a great vocal advocate for aquatics facilities, in the grand scheme of things, they make up only a portion of all users. So we have to go ahead and we have to make sure that we're providing things that attract all aquatic users across the board, especially when we go ahead and we want to focus on cost recovery and optimizing that.
Thanks. We had a question about, will the indoor and outdoor facility have separate filtration systems? Will they share a pool heater? Doug, I'll put that one on a tee for you.
That's a great question. All of the different bodies of water will have separate filtration systems and different sanitation systems, different water temperatures, and as I said, sanitation systems. Each one designed particularly for the number of users that will be under what the health code requires. Just because we'll see a lot of users of this facility. So we want to make sure we're not operating this at the minimum standards, but we're exceeding those standards by providing ultimate water safety. And also that translates to great air quality as well, because that's one of the things that is very important, is that you don't want to be able to tell that there's a pool when you walk in the front door. So by optimizing the filtration systems, the heating systems, and the sanitation systems, and the dehumidification and air handling systems, we have that opportunity to provide just pristine air and water quality. At the same time, we can help reduce cost of operations. Brian was showing those great big openings in the west wall of the facility during the summer months. We might not need to operate the mechanical systems, but we can get natural ventilation, which would help reduce operational costs. So all of these things are going to be considered to optimize usage and diminish cost of operation.
And Doug, this is Darren. In the benefit for those listening with the separate systems, filtration systems, chemical systems, those types of things, is that if there is some type of accident, whatever that might be, we'll put accident in quotes, at the flow rider or at the lap pool, it doesn't shut down the whole facility, correct? We can still go ahead and we can still maintain and operate those other bodies of water. It just means one of them is going to be closed for a little bit, and people might be inconvenienced a little bit, but they're not going ahead and shutting down the facility for the day. That's accurate, correct?
Absolutely. There will not be a mass migration just because maybe the flow rider has an accident, whereas the rest of the pools can then take up that user group and be dispersed throughout the facility.
Cool. Thank you, guys. The last question we had from the folks online were, what type of heating source do we anticipate for the indoor facility, assuming the indoor pool and the indoor aquatics? I would say it may be a little too early to tell on that, but the most efficient system right now, and Doug and Darren, you can chime in here, but I would assume that's the natural gas heating system for pool heaters.
Yes, right now, the most cost-effective way is to use a high-efficiency heaters. They're operating at about 98% efficiency and very reliable, and then having very economical heaters for the indoor air systems as well.
Okay. Those were the questions we have on here. And so I think without any other questions, we will go ahead and end our presentation for the night. Appreciate everyone tuning in, both for the live presentation this evening, but also as a reminder that this is going to be posted online. The city will probably have that out through their social media outlets within the next couple of days. So thank you again for listening in now or in the future, and providing your input to the city and the future of aquatics in Blue Springs. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.